This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. Ewan McGregor stars as Count Alexander Rostov in A Gentleman in Moscow, the new limited series based on the best-selling novel. Stream it with the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan. Visit ParamountPlus.com to try it free.
I feel good.
Dad, are you singing to your cereal?
Come on, Ava. Silk almond milk. Starts the morning on a high note.
Silk almond milk.
With calcium, vitamins A, D, and E.
Feel plenty good.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. From your morning podcast to your afternoon playlist, State Farm knows you personalize your entire day. And that's why State Farm helps you personalize your insurance with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. It offers coverage options that help protect what you care about most at an affordable price just for you. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
Hey everyone, Jay here. I just want to give you guys a little bit of a heads up that the episode that you're about to listen to There Can Only Be One on the discography of Bon Jovi was actually recorded before Bon Jovi announced that they're going to be releasing an album this year. So rather than re-go through a 15 album episode record, we're just going to catch up on that new album when it comes out when we get to our 50th episode. Now, give you a little inside baseball. Episode 50, our game plan is to go back through the artists that we have covered already and catch up on albums that were released since that episode dropped. Bon Jovi will definitely be one of them. Until then, enjoy this show. What is up, everyone? Welcome to this edition of There Can Only Be One, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Now, when we did our Def Leppard episode, in that episode when we were talking about some of the earlier albums and then how Def Leppard's career trajectory went, I made a comparison to the fact that it kind of paralleled the same journey that Bon Jovi had. And of course, Def Leppard and Bon Jovi were arguably two of the biggest bands of their time, with very similar career trajectories. So it only makes sense that since we did a Def Leppard episode, it is time to do a Bon Jovi episode. But I brought in a ringer this time. The one, the only, Sean Faust is back. Sean, welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me on again. I think that I am incredibly well prepared for an episode on the music of Bon Jovi, considering not insert a pun here, but the story of my life is that, well, I get to be David Bryan in New Jersey's own Slippery and Wet, New Jersey, the United States' longest running Bon Jovi tribute. So I think I kind of have a pretty good insight into these songs. What do you think?
You might be the most qualified person I know to discuss the Bon Jovi discography. But when you're going at these albums and you're trying to pick one, obviously you've gone through the discography when you guys were making your set list of what songs to perform. But when you're picking the songs from a personal satisfaction perspective, is it a different approach from when you're trying to build a set list for the people who want their Jovi fix?
It's completely different going personal to what do people need to hear. And when we started, Bounce hadn't even come out yet. So we still had Up to Crush and It's My Life. I think It's My Life was still the big single at that time. I don't think Two Story Town had come out yet. Maybe it had. Because we got together around April or June of 2001. And, Slippery and Wet, New Jersey, I've been talking about them for years on podcasts, has been going strong. 23 years. Picking a song for me is kind of like, honestly, dude, how many years have I been playing Runaway? I'm not going to pick it off the album. I'm not saying it's a bad song, but for me personally, and so when, we had all these albums to go through, I mean, I can name a bunch of tunes where I'm like, yeah, that song's great. And it'd be like, but what are the hits? Let's bang out the hits first. But, every now and then, I kind of got my way. I would call it let's do Blood on Blood. Hey, let's do Edge of a Broken Heart, which I know We cannot choose it tonight. It's only on the Disorderly soundtrack. But, it's this was easier and harder than I thought at the same time because I left the band. And we'll talk about that when we get there. But there were a lot of albums I had to catch up on. I had to crunch it. But yeah, how was it for you? I'm curious, because I know you're more of a metal prog guy, but you also like really good melodic stuff like Pink and Madonna. So where does Bon Jovi fall into the pantheon of music for you?
Well, it's interesting because in my current band, we only do one Bon Jovi song, and that's It's My Life. Because there are certain songs in the discography where I don't care how hard we try, we're not hitting those notes at the end of Runaway. We're just not. It's not going to happen.
That's fair.
Right? But to the same token as well, I used to DJ a lot when, Slippery When Wet, New Jersey, and Keep the Faith were out. So there was a lot of time where I'm just behind the table with my cassette decks and, rewinding it just a little bit by finger so you can just get the right spots. When you hit play, it's a natural in for the song. So I played a ton of Bon Jovi as a DJ. So I got to see the crowd reaction whenever, one of the songs hit. So now I'm curious, though. You say every now and then you pick out a song where it's let's get something that's just not necessarily a hit. Was there ever a song that surprised you at how good the crowd reaction was that you didn't expect?
We were fortunate enough in our early years to play for such diehards. I'm rambling a lot too. You can hear that. I'm very much excited to be back with my boys in this band. I never thought I'd see the day, and I'm really psyched to be doing this. I got to be honest. And one of the things is the fans. The fans are crazy. I mean that with so much love and affection that there was never really anything, I guess, stick to your guns. But I mean, once again, it's the diehard fans in the front. They're like, all right, yeah. And then we did Damned. There were a couple of deeper cuts, but I mean, are there really any deep cuts off of New Jersey or Slippery When Wet?
No.
Right. But you know what? We pulled out Silent Night from 7800 Degrees once, and that went over really, really well. And I was kind of I remember liking this song because it was a ballad when I was younger, but is that really going to go over? And of course, one of my favorite things we ever did was Trolling Before Trolling. Our first few shows, people don't know the name of the song is You Give Love a Bad Name, so they're yelling out Shot Through the Heart. And I'm at a rehearsal one, I'm like, Mike, I got a great idea. Let's learn Shot Through the Heart from the first album. So when people scream out, I'll be like, hey, you want to hear that? And sure enough, man, it was kind of like one of those, we're about to completely mess with the audience. And people started yelling out Shot Through the Heart, and I was like, yes. And I was drinking a lot at the time, so I was even just jumping up and down yeah, we're going to do it. And Mike's like, you guys ready to hear Shot Through the Heart? And the crowd goes nuts, and we start the intro, and people are like, huh? And then all of a sudden the diehards are like, holy shit. And just, it went over so well. It's probably the most fun time I've ever had being a Richard Cranium.
I have to ask, do you think there's extra pressure being a Bon Jovi tribute band from New Jersey?
I mean, yeah. I mean, we're everybody, the number one question we get is, well, have you met him yet? It's kind of how is Elvis and have you seen him lately? And no, we haven't met him yet. I would like to. I want to sit down with David Bryan more because you know me, I'm into all those prog crazy keyboard players, but this gentleman does not get the credit he deserves at all. And I've been saying that for years. Somebody burned me a copy of his first solo album. And I'm like, dude, this guy's amazing. He knows exactly what to play for the Bon Jovi stuff, but when he's on his own doing his own thing, man, that guy rips. That guy seriously rips. So, plus we're from New Jersey, so we grew up in the same areas pretty much. So we've got to we're musicians, the group in New Jersey, playing the music of a songwriter group from New Jersey. And to this day, I'm still trying to convince Mike to do R2D2. We Wish You a Merry Christmas from Christmas Across the Star. I can't remember what it's called. But I still have the record somewhere. But yeah, there's pressure. But I mean, we're also seasoned at this point where my first gig back with them, it was like putting on an old pair of shoes and a wig.
The wig has to happen. Absolutely
Definitely
has
does.
to happen.
It absolutely does. That was my faux pas in version 1 that I was in, and now I'm in this version, whatever number it is at this point. I am doing the wig, baby, and I'm doing it proudly.
Nice.
Sweet Tarts dared to combine sweet and tart. But we didn't stop there. We combined soft and bouncy to bring you new Sweet Tarts Gummies Fruity Splits. A uniquely delicious dual-sided gummy with one side that's sweet and one side that's tart. But entirely smooth and squishy. A powerfully perfect combo. Sweet Tarts. Dare to combine.
Whether you're making a delicious family meal or a post-workout snack, choose the farm-fresh taste of Eggland's Best Eggs. Only Eggland's best hens are fed their proprietary all-vegetarian feed. That's what makes their eggs more nutritious. With 10 times more vitamin E, 25% less saturated fat, and 6 times more vitamin D compared to ordinary eggs. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs. Visit egglandsbest.com to learn more.
For a limited time, Outback Steakhouse has a new 3-course meal called the Aussie Aussie Aussie! Oi, oi, oi. With so many mouth-watering options, the Aussie Aussie Aussie! Oi, oi, oi. Is a deal worth celebrating. With soup or salad, 5 bold and flavourful entrees to choose from, and a New York-style cheesecake for dessert. New York? That's not Australian. The Aussie Aussie Aussie! Oi, oi, oi. 3 courses starting at just $16.99, available at Outback for a limited time. Outback, no rules, just right.
All right, so our listeners have waited long enough. It is time to get into this deep dive here. And here's what we're going to do. We are about to go through all 15 albums of Bon Jovi's studio discography. As normal, we do not do any compilations or live albums. So this means there are certain songs that we ain't going to touch. So when it comes to compilations, songs like Always and Someday I'll Be Saturday Night are actually out of the mix. And then when it comes to soundtracks, you mentioned one. I'm also going to mention Real Life from the EdTV soundtrack. Some of those songs are going to be out of the mix. But we're going to go back to the beginning. And I can't believe I'm saying this. 40 years ago.
This is the one that started it all.
The Bon Jovi self-titled album. Released January 21st, 1984. The band, of course, is the classic lineup of John Bon Jovi, Richie Sambora, Tico Torres, Alec John Such, and David Bryan. Of course, he was listed as David Rashbaum at this point. The album peaked at number 43 in the U.S. and hit number 18 in Finland and is platinum in the U.S. There were 3 singles off of this one. Runaway charted the highest, hitting number 39 on the Billboard Hot 100. So off of the debut album, Sean, what have you got?
Well, you'd think I'd go with something we play, but, after all these years, we don't do this, and I still don't know why, but I went with heavier. I went with the heavier edge from this album because they were still experimenting with what they were as a band at this point, and I liked the heavy side, and I went with Roulette.
Nice. I cannot agree more with that pick because it's actually my pick as well.
Hey, here we go. We're off to a good start.
I was about to say, I'm very curious because over the last couple of times that you've been on this show, we've locked up on our picks a number of times. So I'm very curious at how many times we're actually going to be on common ground at this point. This album, prior to doing this episode, I think my only connection with this album was hearing a song like Runaway off of the, one of their greatest hits albums. And there was a Crossroads, actually. So this was the first time I've ever actually listened to the entire album front to back.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I'm like, okay, cool, not a problem. Runaway, I knew Runaway. And I'm like, maybe this is going to be the song. Maybe it's not, maybe it's She Don't Know Me because, again, I'm familiar with it. But no, Roulette surprised me with how much of a, for lack of a better term, how much of a banger that song is.
It's heavy. Yeah, it's a good tune.
I'm now curious how that would go over if we pulled that one out. But I mean, probably well enough.
I think anything that we do, we're just going to have fun doing it. So I think a lot of it's our energy. I'll talk about that later on down the road, but it almost sounded so arrogant. Like, I think anything we do is just going to sound great because we are slippery and wet New Jersey.
Well, it helps when pretty much anything that Bon Jovi does goes over pretty well as well. So you're in good stead at that point.
Fair enough.
We now move on to March 27th, 1985, and the release of 7800 Degrees Fahrenheit. The album hit number 37 in the US and number 6 in Finland. It is platinum in the US and in Canada. There were 5 singles off of this one. Only Lonely charted the highest, hitting number 54 in the US. So, on your personal one-song-only set list, what makes the cut?
Hey, man, now you know I'm a huge fan of prog rock and stuff like that, like especially some Rush.
You know.
Yeah, you know that. I mean, we talked about those Dream Theater cats a while ago. I went with the song, the first time I heard it, I was like, man, this is very like 80s Rush, and that is To the Fire.
That's a good song.
What a great song. I get a vibe that you didn't go with it.
I did not, actually. I ended up going with Only Lonely. And again, it's one of those things where, again, going into this, I thought it was going to be In and Out of Love, because that was the song I was probably most familiar with, again, being introduced to it on the Crossroads CD. But no, Only Lonely, I think it's probably because the vocal harmonies, and co-written by David Bryan. So there you go.
Starts off with just that dyad of C and E flat. We've done that one.
I will say, I was very, very curious. As I made a mental note of which songs are the longest ones on the CD, because
you thought I was going to choose those.
I met you. Need I remind our listeners that on your Dream Theater episode, you had if I remember correctly, a 3.5 hour playlist made out of the albums.
And that's only 3 songs.
I think so, right? So I was very curious. I know there's going to be one. I know there's going to be one where you are definitely probably going to be hitting the longest song on that album, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't.
Maybe. We shall see. I will give you the full running time when I put this episode out. Slippery When Wet, released April 18th, 1986. The album actually marks the first time they worked with Desmond Child as a collaborator. The album hit number 1 in the US, Australia, Canada, Finland, and Switzerland. This album, it sold a few copies,
Couple.
Yeah, maybe a few at the shows, Diamond in the US, 10 times platinum in Canada, 6 times platinum in Australia, triple platinum in the UK, double platinum in Switzerland, and platinum in Finland, Germany, the Netherlands, and Spain. So, a few copies. There are 4 singles off of this one, which actually surprised me. I figured there would be more, just knowing how many times I've heard pretty much every single song on this album. You Give Love a Bad Name and Living on a Prayer both hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, and Living on a Prayer also hit number 1 in Canada. So off of your namesake band's album, what did you go with?
Well, like I said earlier, I like David Bryan, and that dude is really underrated. And then you look at the intro of this album, it's in D, kind of like Lines in the Sand, right? But you've got Pink Flamingos, which is it's not listed as Pink Flamingos on the album. So I chose Let It Rock. Pink Flamingos is that awesome, awesome intro into an awesome, awesome hard rock tune. Like with Bon Jovi, you're going to see, I like the hard rock and the melodic, but I also like it when David Bryan shines. Oh,
and does he ever shine on that album? And this really does start their trend of starting their albums really, really strong. Like, one thing Bon Jovi did throughout their entire career was start their albums like you were going to want more. Like, one of the strongest songs on the albums every time, right off the bat. Not what I went with, though. And I didn't go with any of the singles. Mine's a bit of a deeper cut, and it's more on the chorus and the lyrics. I went with I Die For You.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And for me, it's all in the pre-chorus in this. That whole line, in a world that don't know Romeo and Juliet. Like, I freaking love the pre-chorus of this song. And I remember... Yeah, now you're going to start singing. I remember the first time I ever sat down in that chair beside that stereo that I had growing up as a kid, put the headphones on, put the vinyl on, and this song would come on, and it finished. And this was the first song I remember specifically picking the needle up and putting it back and trying to find the groove to the beginning of the song, because I freaking love I Die For You. I know it's a deeper cut on this album, because, really, this album had pretty much everything that you could possibly want. I Die For You might be one of the lesser known songs, at least from a fan perspective, that's on there. But for some reason, it spoke to me.
Well, then to answer your earlier question, it goes over great with crowds. It goes over great. Now, when you say you put the needle down on the record, did you, in fact, every time get into the groove?
Not always. Not always. You'd go, you try and hold it there, and then for some reason, someone would like bump your arm or something like that, and then you'd like find yourself in the middle of Never Say Goodbye, and then you had to pick it back up again and put it back.
Well, Jason, you've got to prove your love for that song.
I do.
I'm so stupid.
You know what, though? That's part of the show, and that's all the fun. We now move on to New Jersey, released September 19th, 1988. The album was number 1 in the U.S., Australia, Canada, Switzerland, Sweden, the UK, New Zealand, and probably on Mars. I'm pretty sure it went number 1 there, too.
Definitely did.
It is 7 times platinum in the U.S., 5 times platinum in Canada, double platinum in Australia and the UK, and platinum in Austria, Finland, Germany, Spain, and Switzerland. There were 5 singles off of this one. Bad Medicine and I'll Be There For You both hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. So off of New Jersey, what are you going with?
I went with a deep cut mellow tune that's just got that. I like that southwestern sound. I don't know how else to describe it, but there's a southwestern sound to the intro and the rest of the awesomely melodic Wild Is the Wind.
That is phenomenal song. Absolutely phenomenal.
It's a hard
song.
album to choose from, by the way. I got to tell you that. Really tough album to choose from. Wild Is the Wind, probably because I haven't played it a zillion times. It's so fresh.
There were a few songs on here that really did want to be the pick. Stick to Your Guns was one of them that was in the running. Living in Sin, I freaking love Living in Sin. I personally think Living in Sin is a better ballad than I'll Be There For You, even though I'll Be There For You had the, that moment in the music video where the Bon Jovi scream and the girl starts to cry, and it's like, in that video.
I will be your father figure. Oh, wrong.
No.
Mike, if you're listening, take
Lay Your Hands on Me was also in the running, because this to me is one of the coolest songs that would be a concert opener that I could ever possibly imagine. But I got to go with Born to Be My Baby. I freaking love this song so much. And this is another one where I've said it before on this show. I was a child of much music. I was a child of the video music era. And while this song didn't have like the big, Wayne Isham directed, on the stage kind of, the big Bon Jovi type of video, it was more in the recording studio. The fact that during the music video, you had little ISO tracks from when they were recording, I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. This video made me want to be in a recording studio and do an album. So when I finally got a chance to do it, I'm like, this is the coolest thing. I feel like I'm in the freaking, Born to Be My Baby video. This is awesome. This is great. So yes, I was inspired by the video when I finally got to do an album of my own. So I was quite happy with that.
Awesome. That's very cool.
For the record, I miss Much Music when they used to play music videos. It was such a good time.
That's how I got introduced to Econoline Crush.
Right? There are so many. Like, honestly, please, MTV, Much Music, listen to our shows, listen to us beg you to go back to playing music, because you
Tell the music come back to me.
Right? But you got a great music education, because you got a cross section of music served to you on a daily basis, and it didn't matter. It wasn't like this. Yes, you had your country show. Yes, you had your rap show. Yes, you had your metal show. But during the regular stretch of the day, it was like you could listen to anything, and you got a much more diverse music palette. And I think that's why 90s radio and 90s music appreciation was so wide stretch and not so everyone in their little niche.
True. Very true. It was music for everybody.
And everyone got the music.
Yeah.
We now move on to Keep the Faith. I freaking love this album. This was a tough one. I'm telling you right now, this is a tough one. Released November 3rd, 1992. Bob Rock now takes over the producing duties for this album, where before he was just the mixer and Bruce Fairbairn was working on it. The album peaked at number 5 in the US, hit number 1 in Australia and the UK. 5 times platinum in Canada, 3 times platinum in Australia and Switzerland, double platinum in the US, Austria, Japan, and platinum in Germany, the Netherlands, Spain, and UK. There were 6 singles off of this one. Bed of Roses peaked the highest in the US at number 10 and hit number 2 in Canada. So before we get to our picks, I have to point out, this was the Haircut album before Metallica's Load was the Haircut album.
That's true. That's a good point.
Because the minute the Keep the Faith video came on, they're like, what did he do to his head? But I mean, really, the music matured a lot from New Jersey in Slippery When Wet. So it's almost like the Haircut was the, yes, we're going to be mature now. We're going to, have more texture to our songs. Did you find that the songwriting on Keep the Faith became a bit more complex in regards to earlier albums?
I just think that In These Arms felt like it belongs on Slippery When Wet, but the rest of the album is more blues oriented. It's not hard rock oriented. It's not, like gone are the big synths and giant bell pads, and it's just organs and pianos for the most part. Minus, damn it, I just said the name of the song. Huh? In These Arms. Jesus.
Right. I think, too, with 1992, you had the grunge era coming in. So you had a bit less hairspray and a bit more dirt on the music. And I think this album kind of fit that tenor. But now, off of Keep the Faith, what did you go with?
Well, I'm sure you already know that I have gone with Dry County. Not because it's a 10-minute song, but because I remember the first time hearing the album, it was on cassette. I didn't know how long it was. I had a cassette. It was my first listen. And it just, it's not even that I leaned towards the ballads at that time. But I was just like, man, this has it's got that Southwest feeling again, too, that whole intro. And just 10 minutes later, I was like, the hell was that? That I rewound and just had to hear it again. But Dry County is that song that's just stuck with me for years and years. And every time I hear it, I'm like, oh, man, I love this song so much. And you want to talk about the maturing musically. It's not that they had to write a 10-minute song to get everything out, but it's what they did in that time that you cut any part out of that song, you've just changed that song and ruined it completely.
Oh, yeah.
That is a really mature, perfectly written tune and, vocal melody, everything about that song. Dry County, I'm going to talk about it for 10 minutes. I'm going to give you the Dream Theater version of Dry County. I'm just kidding. But I got a feeling that we didn't lock in on this one, did we?
We did not, but I do want to actually pull out that parallel to Def Leppard and the career trajectory, because really, when you think about it, On Through the Night and High and Dry really kind of paralleled with the self-titled album for Bon Jovi and 7,800 Degrees Fahrenheit. Slippery When Wet and New Jersey has kind of the cultural impact that Pyromania and Hysteria did. Keep the Faith, you could argue, kind of parallels with Adrenalize, which is interesting when you think that Adrenalize featured White Lightning, which was another almost more prog-esque, longer song with a phenomenal guitar solo in it. And now we got Dry County, 9 minutes, 51 seconds with some of Richie Sambora's best work during the Bon Jovi era. It's fascinating how much of these two bands paralleled, and that I don't think they've ever actually toured together.
I don't believe so, but I could be wrong. I don't mind being wrong. And another thing we didn't mention about this album is that this was the return of the band Bon Jovi. Because Bon Jovi went off and did the solo album. Richie did the solo album. John got to see success with the Young Guns 2 film and soundtrack. And Richie got a Jimi Hendrix cover on the Ford Fairlane soundtrack, which is an awesome Jimi Hendrix cover. But Bon Jovi was kind of where's Bon Jovi? Are they coming back? Are we going to get them back? Nobody knew. And then they came back with this really fresh, whole new take on Bon Jovi. So, yeah.
I will say that if ever comes the day where the Adventures of Ford Fairlane soundtrack is a spin, shuffle, skip episode, that cover of The Wind Cries Mary by Richie Sambora may actually surpass Last Time in Paris by Queensryche. And that's saying a lot coming from me.
I would go with the Yellow tune.
But now we get to my pick, though, off of this album. And again, this was another one of those albums where there were a few songs where I was really considering them. Fear has a phenomenal bass groove on that one. But right off the bat of this album, I had to go with I Believe. And yes, did the video look a lot like one of Duran Duran's videos at the time? Yes, it absolutely did. I think it was probably the same director and probably used the same art style.
Oh, come on. Don't come undone.
No, it wasn't Come Undone, though. It was another video off of that album where the style was very similar. And unfortunately, the name of the song escapes me at this point. But I Believe, as an album opener, it's great. Another one of those songs where you can find yourself singing along with it. And I think because it's not as overplayed as a song like Keep the Faith. Like, did I jam the bass line in orchestra class on an upright when this album came out? You damn right I did. Of course I did. There was anyone playing bass, I'm sure, was trying to do that bass line. Sleep When I'm Dead was a ton of fun too. But again, this is another one of those albums where really I don't think there's a weak song on this album at all.
It's definitely their most mature to date.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, as you mentioned, the solo albums before, I think they got a chance to explore a little bit of what it is they want to do and come back with some new ideas. It added a freshness to it. And by the way, the Richie Sambora's Stranger in this talent album, phenomenal album.
That's a really good album.
It is.
That's a really, really good album.
Oh, Ballad of Youth, so good. Such a good song. We now go on to 1995 and the release of These Days. Of course, we're passing the Crossroads compilation. This album, released June 27th, 1995. We have a member change at this point. Alec John Such is now out of the band, and Hugh McDonald is handling the bass duties. The album hit number 1 in multiple countries, but only peaked at number 9 in the US. There were 5 singles off of this one. This Ain't a Love Song charted the highest, hitting number 14 in the US. I'm very, very curious. This is the album I was wondering what your pick was going to be. I wonder if we're going to lock in on this one. What did you go with?
Okay, so it's really tough for me to choose this one because this album opens with that banger on that D organ, the wow, what about with Hey God.
Mm-hmm.
But to this day, I still love the lyrics. I still love the melody. I still love the intro of the first single from this album. And that is Something for the Pain.
Oh, it's a good song.
That's a great song.
It's
my favorite from this album. We didn't lock in, did we?
We didn't lock in. No. I had to go to side B for my pick. But this album, it was a lot darker than I think people expected it to be.
Yeah.
With songs like My Guitar Lies Bleeding in My Arms, there's a lot of pain in that one. And it's a great song. It's an absolutely great song. But to this day, Something to Believe In is one that I cannot stop singing to whenever it comes on. Like, I have that on a few different playlists on my Spotify account because it is that good a damn song. Like, yeah. And again, not one that I think people would necessarily gravitate to, but there is some phenomenal Tico Torres drum work on this.
In my listening of the past few days playing catch up for the past how many years, Tico has done some stuff on some of the later albums where I'm like, dude, you go, brother. That was awesome. So, but like, has Tico ever like not shined on everything?
No, I mean,
I don't think I used the proper word. Has Tico ever not shone on everything?
I think either way would work. And that's the thing, when you realize that John Bon Jovi, David Bryan, and Tico Torres have been together this entire 40-year stretch. Like that is phenomenal. And of course, we're coming up to the release of Thank You Goodnight, which is the documentary series that's being done on Bon Jovi. I watched the trailer for it recently. It is phenomenal. If you have not seen the trailer, I'm going to put the link from YouTube of the trailer of the documentary onto the episode page. So please, by all means, go ahead and have a listen to it. It'll be posted right under the playlist of both Sean and myself from this episode. So you have, you the listener, have some homework to do after you're done listening to this episode.
Do you have any regrets?
I have none. like normally, when there's...
Oh, no, I'm referring to the trailer. The key change at the end of that song, maybe.
Just a little bit. We now move on to Crush, released June 13th, 2000. The album peaked at number 9 in the US and hit number 1 in at least 7 other countries. It is triple platinum in Japan and Switzerland, double platinum in the US, Canada, Germany, Spain, and platinum in Australia, Austria, Finland, Netherlands, and the UK. There were 4 singles off of this one. It's My Life only hit number 33 on the Billboard Hot 100, but did hit number 1 in Austria, the Netherlands, and Switzerland. At the 2001 Grammys, the album was nominated for Best Rock Album. They lost to There Is Nothing Left to Lose by the Foo Fighters, and It's My Life was nominated for Best Rock Performance by a Duo or Group. They lost to Beautiful Day by U2. And I mean, those are all good winners. Say what you will about U2 and Beautiful Day. Not their best song. I get it. But Foo Fighters, There's Nothing Left to Lose. I mean, that was a killer album as well. But off of Crush, what did you go with?
Well, I also love me some Beatles, and I love it when they pay homage to the Beatles. And my first thought was, I'm going to go with Captain Crash, because what a great hooky chorus. But nope, I still love those Beatles. And we don't do this in Slippery When Wet, but I do this solo acoustic. It's Next 100 Years.
That is a very good song. It's
great song. As
I was going through this album, it's like, that would be a really, really good pick. It really, really would. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, of course, I do It's My Life with my current cover band, but that's not the song I'm going with. I also thought about One Wild Night, so I almost went with either the starting track or the end track, but no, I'm going to jump right into the middle and go with Just Older. And
nice.
I think... I liked this song when the album first came out. I was like, okay, it's a catchy song. You sing along with it. It's a very Bon Jovi song, especially at this stage of their career. It's a very Bon Jovi song.
It's a very Bon Jovi song. And you know what? When you play it live, just dedicate it to anybody with a birthday this year.
Right? Exactly. Anyone with a birthday this year. That's pretty much everybody at that point. But I think as I'm 24 years older than this album, then now it's been a bit, and I am now older and creeping on old, I guess.
See, I think of the, I like the bed I'm sleeping in, just like me, it's broken in. Or wait, it's not about the hair. Yeah. So it's about the wig. It's all about the wig, baby. It's about the wig.
But I think I actually identify with this song more now than I did when it first released. And it's still a great song.
We all have, my friend. We all have.
We now get to Bounce. Released October 8th, 2002. Peaked at number 2 in the US. It is platinum in Canada, Germany, Japan, and Switzerland, but only gold in the US. There were 5 singles off of this one. Every Day hit number 1 in Canada. At the 2003 Grammys, Every Day was nominated for Best Pop Vocal Performance by a Duo or Group. They lost to Hey Baby by No Doubt. And the following year, at the 2004 Grammys, Misunderstood was nominated for Best Pop Vocal Performance by a Duo or Group. They lost to No Doubt once again, this time for Underneath It All. So off of Bounce, what did you go with?
Man, when you open an album with something heavy and just lyrically brutal, I live near New York City, man. Undivided, brother. That song just nails it perfectly. And it's a great, hey, we're back and we've got something to say.
I will admit that this album didn't hit with me as much as Crush did or as much as Have a Nice Day did, but Misunderstood, the chorus, the harmonies, you could take a look at some of the biggest bands that are out there.
Should I?
Well, I hear there are other bands that have good songs as well.
Could I?
But I think there's something to be said about the John Bon Jovi Richie Sambora vocal harmony combination that doesn't get matched very often. I mean, you could point to Lane Staley and Jerry Cantrell. You could point to Jeff Tate and Chris DeGarmo. And you definitely have to point to John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora. Probably one of the better 1-2 punches for hitting a chorus vocal harmony in rock music.
100%.
Moving on to Have a Nice Day, released September 20th, 2005. The album peaked at number 2 in the US and hit number 1 in at least 6 other countries. It is platinum in the US, Australia, Austria, Canada, Japan, and Switzerland. There were 4 singles off of this one. Who Says You Can't Go Home peaked highest in the US, hitting number 23. Have a Nice Day hit the top 10 in 7 other countries, including number 2 in Sweden. Who Says You Can't Go Home actually won the CMT Music Award for Collaborative Video of the Year and also won the 2007 Grammy for Best Country Collaboration with Vocals. Obviously, the sound is starting to change a little bit with this album. You still have that traditional Bon Jovi sound, but you can hear the beginnings of what's going to happen with Lost Highway. But off of this album, with the happy little red face on the cover, what did you go with?
I went with that song that was about how come people don't buy records anymore? How come people have to stream everything? How come all these music videos are on YouTube? I went with Last Man Standing, brother. I almost went with Welcome to Wherever You Are, but Last Man Standing that speaks for something. And when John Bon Jovi speaks for something, man, can he write that lyric.
That really was it was between that and Have a Nice Day that I was really kind of tossing between the two. But I ended up going with Have a Nice Day. And again, it's the John Bon Jovi, or Bon Jovi band staple. Hit him hard, hit him fast, hit him good. And then everything else is just, dessert afterwards. But yeah, Have a Nice Day as their, lead off track for this. This album is actually really, really good though. There's a lot of good on this album. I mentioned that changing sound. We're there now with Lost Highway, released June 8th, 2007. This is their more country-influenced album. The album debuted at number 1 in the US, and this is actually the first time that Bon Jovi had a number 1 debut album. And that's baffling when you think about it.
That blows my mind, yeah.
Yeah, when you think about how big some of those earlier albums are, this is the one that debuted at number 1 for the first time. Also hit number 1 in, multiple other countries. It is triple platinum in Canada, double platinum in Austria, and platinum in the US, Germany, and Switzerland. There were 5 singles off of this one. You Want to Make a Memory peaked at number 27 in the US. Till We Ain't Strangers Anymore won the CMT Music Award for Collaborative Video of the Year, and at the 2008 Grammys, it was nominated for Best Pop Album, lost to Back to Black by Amy Winehouse. And You Want to Make a Memory was nominated for Best Vocal Performance by a Duo or Group. They lost to Makes Me Wonder by Maroon 5. The Amy Winehouse one, I can't disagree with, because that album is iconic.
That one I can understand.
Yeah. Maroon 5, maybe not so much. But again, slight bias here. But off of Lost Highway and their more country-influenced album, what did you go with?
It's cool that you mentioned with the Have a Nice Day album, you start to see that little change coming where they're going to incorporate some country vibes. And man, that, once again, the title track, phenomenal. Wow, what a banger. That chorus is just, what a hook. But I went towards the mellow side with Whole Lot of Leavin'.
Oh, that's a good song.
Beautiful song.
I had a few on my list, but I'm surprised. I will admit, I'm not the biggest country guy. I'm not. But there was a lot on here. I think this is the album with the most number of almost picks of everything else.
All right.
And I think because this was actually the first time for me to listen to this whole album, I knew the singles off of this, but that was about it. Not so much as everything else, but I mean, for the rest of the album, it was a first listen for me. So I had to, give shout outs to Whole Lot of Leaving, Summertime, and Everybody's Broken. Last Night was also a standout track. It was one of the things where I'm listening to this like last night, boom, click, it's on my liked songs. But the one that really stood out for me was Any Other Day. I was really, really surprised at how good this one is. And the other thing too is obviously as Bon Jovi is getting older, as we all are, and not old, just older.
Just older.
Right? I'm finding this is now where I'm like, okay, I can actually sing along with him and not feel like I'm straining my voice in the car. Moving on to November 10th, 2009, and the release of The Circle. The album hit number 1 in the US, Canada, Germany, Japan, Scotland, and Switzerland. It is platinum in Canada and gold in the US. There were 4 singles off of this. We Weren't Born to Follow peaked at number 68 in the US and hit number 4 in Austria. At the 2010 Grammys, We Weren't Born to Follow was nominated for Best Rock Vocal Performance by a Duo or Group. They lost to I Got a Feelin' by the Black Eyed Peas. Now, off of The Circle, what's on your list?
Superman Tonight, brother. Superman Tonight. It's all about that tattoo.
Yeah, I'm surprised this is actually the first time they did a song about Superman. Not necessarily directly about Superman, but at least referencing it, because how many photos? They think Metal Edge magazine, you think Circus magazine, Bon Jovi with the Superman tattoo. It's also on my list. I picked Superman Tonight as well.
There you go. Because you know what? Clark Kent, there was a real gent.
I'm trying to remember the Crash Test Dummies lyrics now, and it's just not coming to me. But at least,
well, Superman never made any money saving the world from Solomon Grundy.
And sometimes I despair.
That song makes me cry.
You know, one day there's going to be a Crash Test Dummies episode, right?
Here's a cool fact. A crocodile can't stick out its tongue. Another cool fact, you can get short-term health insurance for a month or just under a year in some states. United Healthcare short-term insurance plans are designed for people who are between jobs, coming off their parents' plan, or turning a side hustle into a full-time gig. Underwritten by Golden Rule Insurance Company, they offer flexible, budget-friendly coverage with access to a nationwide network of doctors and hospitals. Get more cool facts about United Healthcare short-term plans at uh1.com.
The most exciting part of a vacation stay at a home rental? Easy. It's being greeted upon arrival with a rusted lockbox affixed to the underside of a stranger's condo. Yeah, you simply twist knobs, click gears, jiggle it, and then rip it off its moorings, and voila! Your prize is a key to a questionable home rental and maybe tetanus. When you just want to get your vacation started by actually getting into your room, it matters where you stay. At Hilton, we deliver your key right to your phone on the Hilton Honors app. Hilton, for the stay.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, how to get 30, how to get 20, 20, 20, how to get 20, 20, how to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
But now we get to the point in your Bon Jovi career, or at least adjacent career, where we've changed things up a little bit. But at this point, please, we're going to take a moment. We're going to pause before we get into the 2010s. And we're going to find out a little bit more about you. I want to know, please, let our listeners know where they can find your music.
Well, it's funny that this is where we take the break, because this is where I took a 12-year hiatus from Slippery When Wet, New Jersey, because I wanted to focus on my stuff. And at the time, I mean, looking back, hindsight's always 20/20 or better. It depends on how great your vision can be. And at the time, I was just getting really burnt out on the Jovi stuff. And I had an attitude, and it just didn't, it wasn't working. I'm sure I was rubbing the bandmates the wrong way. And I was kind of like, I just want to, let me go off and do my own thing. And they got a great keyboard player, like almost immediately. And, he even showed up for my last show, and great guy. We ended up doing a trio together for a while. And I wanted to focus on my original stuff. And I wrote the song Fork in the Road, which you can find on any of the streaming services. I originally wrote that about leaving Slippery When Wet. And it was produced by Ronnie Parks, bass player of German god band Bonfire. Ronnie is a rock star extraordinaire and like a big brother to me. So he produced that. He did some really cool acoustic stuff on it. Did all those really neat percussion things you're hearing. And Radici, our very own Richie Sambora, did the guitar solo and just recently found out that that song was in fact written about my leaving Slippery When Wet. Now whenever I perform it live, it's for my feline friends that I have lost. And if you look at my set lists at SeanFaustMusic.com, you'll see the names of my babies that I've lost. So SeanFaustMusic.com is a good place to start, but I'd rather you go to, say, iTunes or Amazon because, streaming doesn't help a musician pay the bills, but buying their music does. And also, being that we're going through this 12-year path, JoviTribute.com, check it out. All kinds of stuff. When and where we're playing. Pictures, message boards maybe. I don't know if they have message boards on websites anymore. Email, talk to us. Somebody will talk back to you. And of course, the usual haunts, Facebook, Instagram, Slippery When Wet, New Jersey. From New Jersey, rocking for you wherever we rock.
When it came to writing your own music after that long stretch, did you find you had to get the Bon Jovi sound out of your head when moving to your own music? Or was it one of those, I'm getting away from Bon Jovi so I can get the songs that I'm hearing in my head out?
I mean, I was still writing my own stuff at the time while I was in Slippery When Wet, and I was focusing, I was doing the solo acoustic thing, and I was still writing a lot of proggy stuff, but also playing Bon Jovi stuff. I was able to focus on, hey, where's the hook? Like, I've learned so much about songwriting just from playing Bon Jovi for how many years. And it wasn't as much of an escape, but I was also like really into like prog rock, and I was also into Fish, and I liked doing the jammy full band, like, let's see where we can take this song, what height can we take it to, and it was something I couldn't do with Slippery When Wet for very obvious reasons, and no fault of anybody's. Play these songs as they are. That's what the people want to hear, and I kind of just wanted to veer off and do something different. And then just a few months ago, I got a text message with my own words looking back at me with a message saying, do you still feel this way? And I was like, man, did the stars align or what? And like I said at the beginning of the top of the show, man, I'm giddy. Our first show back, it was just so great. So much fun. And I'm really looking forward to this next step with my brothers in Slippery When Wet.
That is awesome. That is awesome. But now we get to move into the albums in between then and now. Starting with What About Now, released March 8th, 2013. The album hit number 1 in the US, Australia, Austria, Canada, Spain, and Sweden. And it's platinum in Austria, gold in Australia, Canada, and Germany. There were 2 singles off of this one, Because We Can, hit number 5 in the US. So off of What About Now, what's on your list?
Well, there's 2 things I want to say about this. I did choose to listen to the deluxe editions. And I'm glad that I did it now with fresh ears that just weren't burnt out on something I thought I didn't want to do 12 years ago. So I'm glad I listened to it now just with this complete open mind. And I just want to point out 2 songs on the deluxe edition because I'm sure they don't count for this show, but Army of One could totally be a Pink song. Army of One is so damn good. And with these 2 hands from the deluxe version, it's so awesome. This guy can write a song about hope, and man, did I love it. And Into the Echo, I saw it had the lowest amount of streams on Spotify. I was like, wow, is this song that bad? No, not at all. Matter of fact, that song's really excellent. It's got a very comfortably numb kind of guitar solo, but I went with the atmosphere, and I went through like David Bryan is like doing this like really synth-paddy, like airy, mellow Floyd-y atmosphere. And I went with Room at the End of the World.
That was one of the songs that was on my short list. And not my pick. You missed it by 1. I ended up going with Beautiful World off of this.
That's what I almost went with.
So it's basically like our singles are like the B-sides of the other. So it's all good.
Fair.
The thing with Beautiful World is, and I I keep going back to the Candlebox episode because you know me, I freaking love Candlebox.
Yes, you do.
Their Love Stories and Other Musings album, the entire album feels like an open air drive in the summer with the top down, windows open, and just that kind of free road trip kind of vibe. That's what Beautiful World feels to me. It feels like a top down summer day, open air, gorgeous weather kind of drive.
And what I noticed about that, that song, a lot of that album was like, this guy is such, like, when he writes a lyric that I'm kind of like, I really cringe, but when he writes a good lyric, God damn it, he writes a really solid, great lyric, man.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I know, like, you know, as you're reading through all the Wikipedia pages and whatnot on the discography, and you have people commenting about there isn't anything you can't turn into well, I don't care. That's what Bon Jovi is. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, aside from Lost Highway, which they never really changed their sound overall, it's just almost like they changed the production, the instrumentation. It's still a Bon Jovi album. It's not like they came out and started doing freaking hip hop and started rapping.
No, the production just fits the time. I think that's the only real change I've noticed in these past few albums.
Yeah. I mean, like, as we mentioned with Keep the Faith, it got a little bit more mature and a little bit heavier, and that kind of went along with everything else that was happening in 1992. But Bon Jovi basically stayed Bon Jovi, and that's a good thing.
Oh, hell yes.
We now move on to Burning Bridges, released August 20th, 2015. The album peaked at number 13 in the U.S., hit number 1 in Austria, Croatia, Germany, and Spain, and gold in Austria. 2 singles off of this one. Saturday Night Gave Me Sunday Morning, hit number 54 in Austria, so it's pretty big there. But off of this album, what's on your list?
So in the 80s, I would say Vito Bratta was the David Gilmour of the 80s with the 80s hard rock. And now coming into these, like, the 10s, like, what do we call them? The 10s, the E's, the whatevers? And Who Would You Die For on this album? Holy Floyd. But I went with A Teardrop to the Sea. I stuck with the mellow Floydy.
I'm surprised I didn't go with more mellow Bon Jovi because, I mean, let's be honest. Bon Jovi knows how to write a ballad. They do.
Oh, hell yeah.
I'm so glad you mentioned Who Would You Die For, because that is actually my pick.
Nice.
Like, it is so good and a lot darker than I think people would expect. I also had We Don't Run on my short list as being a fairly decent song, but no, it's Who Would You Die For. This song, because as I'm listening to this album, I'm just like, okay, I get it. It's a bit darker. It's a bit unfinished. Not so much in the way like Carnival of Souls from Kiss felt a bit more raw.
Unholy.
Well, no, that was Revenge.
Oh, you're right. My bad. I apologize.
But when that song comes on, it's like, holy crap. Like, this is good. It's got some teeth to it too, which is nice. 2 more to go, and we start with This House Is Not For Sale. Released November 4th, 2016. We got a member change now. Phil X, now on guitar, taking over the reins from the departed Richie Sambora. The album peaked at number 1 in the US, Australia, and Austria. It's gold in Australia and Austria, and silver in the UK. There were 6 singles off of this one. This House Is Not For Sale hit number 43 in Austria. So off of this one, and a brand new feel for the band on guitar, what did you go with?
Man, remember I just said about the lyrics, like when he writes a great lyric? I had to look this up because it's so raw and in your face. I set each stone and I hammered each nail. This house is not for sale, brother.
Oh, such a good song. Such a good
Love
song.
it.
I had on my short list The Devil's in the Temple. Good groove on that one. But I'm going to cheat a little bit because it's my show and I get to cheat a little bit whenever I want to.
Fair, that's fair.
But I'm going to go with a song off the 2018 reissue off of this album. I'm going to go with Walls. This is a phenomenal song. And there's something really catchy about the halftime chorus they did with this. Like, the vibe during the verse is all good, but then they get to like the chorus and it's all of a sudden like, let's halftime the beat and all that. And it's like, oh, this is good. I was caught off guard by it, but
it's like a sludgy groove. It's almost like Paralyzed from Distance Over Time, how it's just sludgy and groovy.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing too is like when you think about Bon Jovi, they get to the chorus and the chorus is big. This felt almost like in reverse, where it's like, yeah, let's change it up a little bit and let's slow it down. Even though the tempo doesn't change, it's just the feel of it. And Walls, phenomenal song. We now get to the last album so far of Bon Jovi's career, 2020, released October 2nd of 2020, peaked at number 19 in the US. There were 5 singles off of this one. Limitless hit number 10 on the US adult contemporary charts. I gotta give Bon Jovi credit. Like, I feel bad for any band that had an album that came out in 2020 or early 2021, because obviously you're not going to get a chance to really tour on it. You're not going to get a chance to do what a band normally does. But the nice thing is, when everyone's sitting at home and they can't go out and do the things, at least they did have new music from acts like Bon Jovi. So when this album came out, how refreshing was it to get new music during that time?
It was actually pretty cool. I remember we popped that on because it's nothing to do. You go to work. Well, all right, not everybody went to work. I went to work. I come home. And then, on Saturday nights, like, have a couple beers back when I would drink and like there's a new Bon Jovi album. I'm drunk enough. Let's check it out. Because I was still in that mindset. It's all about mindset, my friend. And at the time I was kind of like, whoa, what the hell is going on here? But it just, it wasn't what once again, I say expectations ruin all enjoyment. And, even when it comes to music, and it's something that I wasn't 100% sold on, but I was like, hey, let's see what he did. And I really enjoyed revisiting it this morning, actually.
So off of 2020, what did you go with?
I almost went with Story of Love because there's that George Harrison inspired guitar solo that's just so gorgeous. But I did go with Blood in the Water, which is Dry County meets Pink Floyd, like I said earlier. But Blood in the Water, man, does it really like just hit. And like I'm the whole album has those like mellow padded keyboards, just like the last album or the last 2 albums. And I was just it just really like I got dragged into this album a lot. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's terrible, you're gonna hate it. Like it's awful. And like I had heard it once on a drunken night, so what am I gonna remember? And I don't know what album these people heard at all, because I really dug this album a lot. But Blood in the Water, baby.
I will say that this is the first album where I really noticed the change of guitar solo styling. Going from Phil X or going from Richie Sambora to Phil X. Like it's a very noticeable difference. It doesn't say it's better or worse. It's just very different. Because Phil X, phenomenal guitarist. I mean, the guy, basically joined Triumph after Rick Emmett left. So, I mean, he's got the chops. There's zero question about that. And if you've ever seen the Hired Guns documentary, that is a phenomenal documentary to check out. And he's actually in that as well. But I really noticed the guitar solo on Beautiful Drug. And as different as it was, it still really stood out for me as being a Bon Jovi solo, just with a slightly different pedal setting almost. So now that we've gone through the full 15 album discography of Bon Jovi, and I mean, I don't know if we're going to get a new album, so we may have to come back and revisit this at some point when we finally do a catch-up episode with all the bands that have released albums since we actually covered them the last time, because there's already a few out there that we have to come back and revisit.
DT16, baby.
Oh, and don't forget, Amaranth has also put out a new album. So there's another album that's going to be in the catch-up episode. So be sure to check that out when the time comes. Don't worry, we'll let you guys know. But before we go, Sean, now comes the tough part. So
is it really the tough part?
Well, it depends on how invested some of these songs you are. But please remind our listeners what songs you picked from the 15 albums of Bon Jovi, and if there can only be one, what's it gonna be?
So, from the first album, I went with Roulette. From 7800 Degrees Fahrenheit, I went to The Fire. Well, I didn't. I just chose the song. From Slippery and Wet, I chose Let It Rock. New Jersey, I went with Wild as the Wind. Keep the Faith, I went with Dry County. These Days, I went with Something for the Pain. On Crush, I went with Next 100 Years, which you can hear me perform live if you come see me do the solo thing. From Bounce, I did Undivided. From Have a Nice Day, I did Last Man Standing. I didn't. I chose it. I'm sorry. From Lost Highway, I chose Whole Lotta Leavin'. From The Circle, I chose Superman Tonight. From What About Now, I chose Room at the End of the World. From Burning Bridges, I chose A Teardrop to the Sea. From This House Is Not for Sale, I chose This House Is Not for Sale. And from 2020, I chose Blood in the Water. And if I have to choose just one Bon Jovi song, Jason, do you just want to guess what it is?
I'm going to guess it's 9 minutes and 51 seconds of Dry County.
It is most certainly 1 billion% Dry County, my friend.
All right, and for mine, off of Bon Jovi, I went with Roulette. From 7,800 Degrees Fahrenheit, I went with Only Lonely. From Slippery When Wet, I went with I'd Die For You. From New Jersey, I went with Born to Be My Baby. From Keep the Faith, I picked I Believe. From These Days, I went with Something to Believe In. From Crush, I went with Just Older. From Bounce, I went with Misunderstood. Off of Have a Nice Day, I Had a Nice Day. From Lost Highway, I went with Any Other Day. From The Circle, I went with Superman Tonight. Off of What About Now, I went with Beautiful World. From Burning Bridges, I went with Who Would You Die For? Off of This House Is Not for Sale, I went with Walls off of the 2018 reissue of the album. And off of 2020, I went with Beautiful Drug. But if there can only be one, and this might shock a few people, but I'm going to go with Something to Believe In off of These Days.
Nice.
I know it's not their biggest album, but that song slays. To this day, I will crank it up loud, especially that breakdown too. Like that bass and drum breakdown with Richie Sambora, just like such a good song. Such a good song. All right, Sean, before we go, please remind our listeners where they can find you out there on the interwebs and where they can get your music.
Well, of course, you can find me on all of the social medias at Sean Faust or Sean Faust Music, depending on which one you go to. Just play roulette with that one. That's for Ronnie. I'm going to go and say, just go to iTunes, go to Amazon, type in Sean Faust Gin Asylum, because I'll tell you, I still need to sell 1 million copies of that song so I can help kitty cats any way I can, everywhere I can. I need that financial cushion. And, I'm going through something right now with my youngest guy, and it's very costly. And the best way for me to ask you to help, buy my music. It's the best way to help anybody. I can give you something in return that you can enjoy forever. 1 million sales of Gin Asylum by Sean Faust. Or if you want something more mellow, Sean Faust, Fork in the Road. Just go to iTunes, go to Amazon, wherever you purchase music, please. That would be great. And of course, I'm giddy. I got to plug my brothers. We are Slippery and Wet, New Jersey, from New Jersey, rocking here for you wherever it is that we're rocking here for you. We got a website, jovitribute.com, and check it out. All kinds of stuff. Mike will give the rant the next time you come and see us performing live. Please, SeanFaustMusic.com. And of course, please support Jason. There Can Only Be One. It's not that bad. Skip, spin, shuffle, skip. I almost did that backwards.
Say that 5 times fast.
That. It wasn't that hard.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I know.
See, I was about to say, and you're on the right show, because bad jokes and dad jokes for days here. Sean, thank you so much for this. You're always welcome, and we'll get you on the next episode. Don't you worry. Until next time, listeners, you know the drill. If there is an artist that you want us to cover, hit us up on social media at OnlyOneCast, or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. While you're there, check out the episode page so you can see the playlist that we have made and the link to the documentary Thank You Good Night by Bon Jovi, and check out all the other shows while you're there and our coming soon page so you can get your chime-ins in on episodes that we're getting ready to talk about. Until next time, he's Sean, I'm Jay. This is There Can Only Be One, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.